The day humanity had long wondered about finally arrived, a day when the stars above would no longer seem so distant, but instead would become a stage for the most significant encounter in Earth's history. The first alien species, the Jour, had arrived. Their ship, a colossal, shining battleship known as the Jorath, hung ominously above Earth, casting a shadow that seemed to stretch across the entire planet. The Jour had come with great fanfare, their arrival marked by a broadcast that was received across the globe. Earth watched in awe and fear as the Jour's leader, Zorathar, spoke through the speakers, his voice cold and commanding, telling humanity that they had traveled across the stars to make contact and offer the chance for cooperation. But it was clear from the start that this was no ordinary visit. They didn't come in peace. The Jour were here to display their dominance, and they were eager to show humanity how little they mattered in the grand scheme of the universe. The Jorath, a ship so large it could have swallowed cities whole, was their greatest weapon, AI, symbol of their technological superiority. It was equipped with energy cannons that could shatter asteroids in the blink of an eye, and its hull gleamed like a star itself, a testament to the unimaginable power they wielded. The Jour didn't need to prove themselves. They believed that their very presence would make humanity bow down in fear, awed by the power they had never dreamed of. Earth's leaders gathered together to meet the alien delegation, but to their surprise, they were not met with the expected panic. Instead, humanity's representatives stood with curiosity, their eyes focused on the magnificent ship as it hovered in the sky. They marveled at the sight, not with fear, but with intrigue. The Jorath fired a few warning blasts, sending shockwaves through the atmosphere, cracking asteroids into pieces for everyone to see. Yet still, the people of Earth did not cower. It was as if something in the air told them that this show of force was not enough to break their resolve. Zorathar, watching from his ship, couldn't understand it. This was supposed to be a moment of victory for the Jour, a display that would show Earth just how powerless they truly were. Yet as the world watched in quiet wonder, there was an unspoken realization creeping into the minds of humanity. This was just the beginning. The Jour might have brought power, but Earth had something the aliens had not yet accounted for. Beneath the spectacle of the Jorath's firepower, there was something deeper, something humans couldn't yet understand, but something that made them more than just an audience. As the Jour's fleet loomed above Earth, the camera feeds across the world flickered with the image of Zorathar's expression. His eyes narrowed, confused, as he saw the humans below, standing, not in fear, but with a glimmer of defiance. The world held its breath, waiting for the next move, as the Jour, for the first time, realized they had miscalculated. They thought their battleship would be enough to win Earth's respect, but the people of Earth had begun to wonder, did these aliens really think of humanity? And more importantly, what did humanity think of them? The stage was set, and the universe was watching. The question now was simple: who would bow to whom? Behind closed doors, the leaders of Earth were in a state of panic. News of the Jour's arrival had sent shockwaves across the globe. Governments scrambled to form a response, but the debate was divided. Some, especially the more cautious leaders, urged immediate surrender, terrified by the sheer size and power of the Jorath. They saw no way of matching such an advanced alien force. Others, particularly military officials, called for diplomacy, hoping to negotiate with the aliens and avoid further bloodshed. But there was a growing realization among some of the world's brightest minds that humanity was being underestimated, and that this could be their greatest opportunity. Among these individuals were military tacticians, engineers, and former astronauts who had worked on classified projects during the Cold War. Together, they formed a small, secret task force with one goal: to give humanity a fighting chance. As the world trembled, these individuals met in undisclosed locations, often in the dead of night, as they quietly began to work on a solution. During one of their covert meetings, an unexpected breakthrough occurred. A retired military officer stumbled across an old blueprint hidden deep in the archives, a set of designs for an experimental human battleship called Goliath. The ship had been a part of a top-secret project created years ago, during a time when humanity had feared the possibility of alien contact. But the project had been shelved due to its immense complexity and the fact that no one had thought Earth would ever face such a threat. The Goliath was a ship unlike any other, massive in size, with powerful weapons and defense systems far beyond the capabilities of any existing military technology. It was designed not just as a weapon, but as a symbol of humanity's potential, a last-ditch effort to defend Earth from any external threat. But for years, it had remained unfinished, buried under layers of government bureaucracy, the complexity of the project making it impossible to complete. However, in light of the Zhur's invasion, the engineers and tacticians saw something the rest of the world did not. They saw hope. They quickly gathered a team of the best minds from across the globe: scientists, military officers, engineers, and even a few former astronauts who had once worked on the project. These men and women had all been waiting for a moment like this, when their skills would finally be needed. They knew that the Goliath wasn't just a ship. It was a message that Earth was not ready to give up. With their combined knowledge, they began to breathe new life into the Goliath project. Time was against them. The Zhur's battleship was still hovering in Earth's orbit, and the aliens had made no attempt to hide their intentions. But the team worked tirelessly, pouring all their energy into reviving the old designs. The ship was a marvel of engineering, a giant steel fortress capable of withstanding incredible forces. It had experimental weapons, shields, and engines that had never been tested. Yet, even in its unfinished state, it represented the one thing the Zhur had not accounted for: humanity's ability to innovate under pressure. As the task force worked, whispers began to spread. News of the Goliath project reached a few key officials, and a sense of quiet hope began to build. It wasn't just about fighting the Zhur anymore. It was about proving that humanity was capable of standing on equal footing with the universe's most advanced species. In secret laboratories and hidden bunkers, the pieces of the Goliath were slowly coming together. Engineers, once resigned to their desk jobs, found themselves working with tools and technology they had only dreamed of. Meanwhile, the Zhur, unaware of humanity's growing resolve, continued their grand display of power, certain that Earth's leaders would bend to their will. Little did they know, a new weapon was being forged in the depths of the Earth's core, a weapon that would soon challenge everything they thought they knew about humanity. The clock was ticking, and the world held its breath as the Goliath slowly came to life. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a hidden underground facility known only to a select few, the Goliath was beginning to take shape. The vast cavernous space buzzed with activity, the air thick with the sound of welding, hammering, and the hum of advanced machinery. Human engineers, working around the clock in shifts, were pushing the limits of what was possible. There were no days or nights. Here, just the relentless drive to finish the project. The Goliath's massive frame was slowly emerging from the dark shadows, its outer hull a sleek blend of military-grade alloys and experimental materials. Its design was a marvel of human engineering, a testament to what could be accomplished when necessity forced innovation. It was no longer just a ship. It was humanity's final chance to show the universe that they were not to be dismissed so easily. Every aspect of the Goliath was being refined to perfection. The engineers were adding improvements at every turn. Advanced energy shields, capable of withstanding the most powerful of enemy attacks, were integrated into the ship's structure. New experimental hyperdrive engines were installed, engines that would allow the Goliath to move with a speed that no alien ship could match. The weaponry on board was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, designed not only to strike at the heart of an enemy, but to give them a taste of the raw power humanity could wield when pushed to the edge. Each weapon was carefully calibrated, each piece of technology tested to ensure that when the time came, the Goliath would be ready for anything. Meanwhile, above Earth, the Zhur continued their grandiose display of power. The Zorath, their enormous battleship, loomed ominously. In Earth's orbit, casting a shadow over the planet below, they broadcast their message to the entire world. Their leader, Zorathar, standing tall in front of his massive ship, his words dripping with condescension. "Look at your world, humans," he sneered through the transmission, his voice echoing across every screen on Earth. "You speak of strength, of technology, but your weapons are nothing. Your best ships are toys compared to the Zorath. How foolish you must be to think you can stand against us." The Zhur believed their ships' overwhelming size and power were more than enough to crush any resistance, and they were eager to flaunt it. They made it clear that Earth had no real hope of survival unless they immediately accepted the Zhur's terms of surrender. It was a message meant to break the spirits of every human on the planet, to remind them that they were insignificant in the face of the Zhur's might. But as Zorathar's words echoed across the globe, something else was happening below the surface of Earth. In the hidden underground facility, the Goliath was steadily coming together, piece by piece. With Yarr, every passing day, the engineers could see the ship growing, becoming more and more like the masterpiece they had always envisioned. The hum of the machines became louder, their steady rhythm a heartbeat in the dark depths of the Earth. Even though time was running out and the Zhur's intimidating presence hovered in the sky above, the engineers felt a strange sense of determination. They were working not just for survival, but for something much bigger: the survival of their species, their planet, and their pride. And as the Goliath's frame took shape, there was a growing sense among them that the Zhur might not be as invincible as they seemed. Zorathar's words had been bold, but there was an undercurrent of doubt that humans could sense. The Zhur had underestimated them. They believed the Zorath was their ultimate weapon, but the engineers knew something Zorathar did not. Humanity had a secret weapon, a ship built not only with technology but with the heart of every human on Earth. A ship that, once completed, could turn the tables in a way the Zhur could never predict. As the engineers worked late into the night, the task force leading the project exchanged knowing glances, their hearts filled with a quiet but fierce hope. The Goliath was more than just a ship. It was humanity's response to the Zhur's arrogance. It was time for the aliens to understand one simple truth. No matter how advanced their technology, they had underestimated the one thing humanity could always count on: the will to survive. The tension across Earth reached a fever pitch as the GE world braced for the inevitable showdown. For weeks, humanity had watched as the Zhur's imposing presence loomed above them, their massive battleship Zorath still hovering menacingly in Earth's orbit. The alien fleet had shown no sign of retreating, their threats echoing across every broadcast, demanding that humanity submit or face destruction. Earth's leaders had tried every diplomatic avenue, but the Zhur were unmoved. And now, with time running out, the world placed its hopes on one thing: the Goliath. Despite the technological disparity between the two sides, humanity's belief in the ship's potential became the rallying cry for the planet. People everywhere looked up at the sky with a renewed sense of determination, united by the hope that this mysterious ship, still under construction, would turn the tide. It was more than just a vessel. It was a symbol of humanity's refusal to bow down, no matter the odds. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. The Zhur's fleet, with the Zorath leading the way, entered Earth's atmosphere. The sight of their colossal ship filling the sky was enough to send a wave of dread through the hearts of every human. As the Zorath descended, its massive size alone seemed to cast a shadow over the Earth. The ship's weapons systems came online, and the Zhur were confident that their might would overwhelm any resistance. They saw Earth's forces, still in the process of organizing, nothing more than a feeble attempt at a fight. But just as the Jur had predicted, Earth was about to retaliate. From deep within the underground facility, the Goliath was deployed, its sleek metallic surface emerging from the hangars for the first time. As it broke through Earth's atmosphere and began its ascent into space, it felt almost surreal to those watching from the ground. This was humanity's last chance, a ship built not just for defense, but to prove that Earth could stand tall, no matter how much more powerful the Jur appeared to be. When the two ships finally came face to face in the cold void of space, the contrast was stark. The Zorath was immense, its hull shimmering like a fortress, brimming with firepower. It was the perfect representation of the Jur's arrogance, designed to instill fear and awe. The Goliath, however, was different. Smaller, more streamlined, and deceptively agile, it seemed almost too compact to compete with the alien behemoth. But as the two ships moved closer, it quickly became clear that appearances were deceiving. The Jur watched with growing disbelief as the Goliath began to shift and move with an incredible fluidity. Its sleek aerodynamic design made it almost invisible against the blackness of space, but its energy weapons began to glow with an intensity that sent a shockwave through the Jur. With precision and speed, the Goliath fired its first shots, blasts, of concentrated energy that hit the Zorath's shields with force, causing them to flicker. The Jur had expected humanity's defense to be clumsy and outdated, but the Goliath was unlike anything they had anticipated. It was a perfect fusion of technology and ingenuity, designed not just to survive, but to challenge. The Goliath's energy weapons weren't just powerful, they were precise, cutting through the Jur's defenses with pinpoint accuracy. And the ship's ability to outmaneuver the Zorath was like nothing the Jur had ever seen. They could fire their weapons in response, but the Goliath was always one step ahead, darting through space with such agility that it seemed almost impossible for the Jur to keep up. Every shot, every maneuver, was a testament to the fact that the Goliath was not a ship built for show, but for survival. As the Jur watched in stunned silence, they realized something. They had underestimated humanity, not just in terms of technology, but in spirit. The Goliath wasn't just a weapon, it was the embodiment of humanity's will to survive and fight back. It didn't just match the Zorath, it flipped the script on everything the Jur had believed about Earth's place in the universe. The Jur had thought their might was enough to crush humanity's resistance, but the Goliath was proving them wrong. The battle was just beginning, and Earth had already delivered its message. Humanity would not go down without a fight. The silence of space was shattered as the battle between humanity's Goliath and the Jur's Zorath erupted into full force. The Jur, with their towering ship, unleashed a series of devastating energy blasts, each one crackling with enough power to rip through asteroids. The Zorath's cannons roared as they fired in quick succession, intent on obliterating anything in their path. But the Goliath, built with speed and precision, wasn't an easy target. The human ship's advanced maneuvering systems kicked into action as it weaved effortlessly through the blasts, darting and twisting in ways the Jur never expected. Every energy beam shot by the Zorath seemed to miss, cutting through space, where the Goliath had been only seconds before. With every near miss, the Jur's confidence began to waver. They had believed that sheer size and overwhelming firepower would make them unstoppable, but the Goliath's agility turned the tide of the battle. Then came the first counterattack. The Goliath fired its own weapons, not with brute force, but with surgical precision. Each blast was calculated, aiming not at the Zorath's massive hull, but at the weak points in its defensive systems. Energy blasts hit the Jur vessel's shield generators, sending ripples across the energy field. The Jur had designed their ship with an impenetrable shield, but they had never accounted for a weapon that could strike at the very core of its defense. With each precise hit, the Zorath's shield flickered, weakened by the Goliath's pinpoint attacks. The Jur were starting to panic. Their mighty ship, once thought invulnerable, was now showing signs of vulnerability. They fired back with more intensity, their weapons almost frantic. But the Goliath was always one step ahead, twisting and dodging through space with a fluidity that no one had expected. The Zhur commanders barked orders, trying to outthink the human ship, but the Goliath's adaptive systems allowed it to respond faster than the Zhur could react. It was as if humanity had learned to fight with the intelligence of a predator, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then, the Goliath revealed its trump card. Hidden deep within its systems, an experimental superweapon had been quietly charging, designed not to overpower, but to disrupt. As the Zhorath fired another barrage, the Goliath's weapon powered up. A pulse of concentrated energy shot from the human ship's core, striking the heart of the Zhur ship's shield system. The Zhorath's defensive barriers crackled and sputtered. As they short-circuited, their once impenetrable shield technology completely disabled. The Zhur had no defense left. In the moment of weakness, the Goliath pounced. Its weapons, fine-tuned to exploit the vulnerabilities of alien technology, hammered the Zhur vessel with devastating precision. The Zhorath shuddered as energy blasts hit its exposed sections, tearing into its hull. The mighty Zhur ship, which had once seemed untouchable, was now vulnerable and struggling to fight back. The Zhur's panic was palpable, their arrogance crumbling with each strike. They had underestimated humanity, thinking that the Goliath would be just another feeble attempt at resistance. But instead, the human ship had proved that it wasn't about size or brute strength. It was about intelligence, adaptability, and knowing where to strike. The Zhur, in their overconfidence, had believed their ship's sheer size and firepower would guarantee their victory, but they were now learning the painful truth. Humanity was not so easily crushed. The battle raged, but the tide had turned. The Goliath wasn't just surviving, it was winning. And as the Zhur scrambled to regain control, they knew one thing for certain. The humans were no longer the underdogs. As the battle raged on, Zorathar, the Zhur commander, could feel his confidence slipping away. From the bridge of the Zhorath, he watched in disbelief as humanity's Goliath danced around his attacks, its energy blasts striking with devastating accuracy. Every maneuver, every counterattack, was a reminder of how terribly wrong the Zhur had been. For centuries, they had believed themselves to be the pinnacle of technological advancement, the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy. They had seen countless species fall before their might, their technology unmatched in power and scope. But now, they were facing a species they had underestimated: humans. The Goliath was more than just a ship. It was the embodiment of everything the Zhur had never considered about humanity. The Zhur had assumed that humans, with their primitive technology and short history in the cosmos, would crumble before their overwhelming force. But now, the truth was undeniable. It wasn't just technology that made humanity dangerous. It was the sheer will to survive, adapt, and innovate. Every time the Goliath dodged another energy blast or struck another vulnerable point on the Zhorath, Zorathar's arrogance turned to frustration. The Zhur were the strongest, the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, but they couldn't seem to break Earth's resolve. The Zhur commander's thoughts began to darken as he realized how the balance of power was shifting. Desperation seeped into his voice as he ordered his fleet to launch its final weapon, a swarm of attack drones. Thousands of them, small, agile, and packed with explosive power, would surround the Goliath, overwhelming it with sheer numbers. The drones were designed to swarm their targets, flooding the area and overwhelming the enemy's defenses with constant attacks. It was a strategy that had worked countless times before, but this time, the Zhur had failed to account for the humans' adaptability. On the bridge of the Goliath, Captain Riley stood firm, her eyes focused and calm. A seasoned strategist, Riley had seen countless battles, but nothing like this. She knew that this was the Zhur's last attempt to break them, and she had anticipated. The swarm of drones closed in on the Goliath, their weapons systems powering up for a final strike. But instead of retreating or trying to engage them head-on, Captain Riley gave a single order: execute Plan Gamma. The crew sprang into action. The Goliath shifted its trajectory, using the immense gravity of Earth's atmosphere to gain speed. Riley had studied the Zhur's drone technology extensively during the months of preparation, and she knew exactly how to exploit its weaknesses. As the drones approached, the Goliath used its superior maneuverability to lure them into a trap. It dove towards Earth's dense atmosphere, the drones in hot pursuit. The swarming fleet, thinking they had the advantage, followed blindly into the atmosphere's turbulent air currents. But Riley had calculated every angle, and now the Goliath used the terrain to its advantage. With swift and precise turns, the human ship flew through the thick atmosphere where the Zhur drones struggled to maintain control. The Goliath's agility allowed it to perform impossible maneuvers, forcing the drones into chaotic patterns. The Zhur's technology, so dependent on space combat, couldn't adapt to the sudden shifts in gravity and atmosphere. One by one, the drones were knocked out of formation, either crashing into each other or getting caught in the turbulence. Some tried to regroup, but it was too late. The Goliath was already on the offensive. With a rapid series of well-placed shots, the Goliath destroyed the remaining drones, scattering their debris like falling stars. From his command deck, Zorathar watched in stunned silence as the drones were annihilated in a matter of moments. His forces had thrown everything. They had at Earth, but the humans had turned the tide yet again. The Zhur had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to think outside the box, and to use their environment to their advantage. It was not just technology that made humanity a force to be reckoned with. It was their ability to learn, to evolve, and to surprise. Zorathar's anger boiled over as he realized the truth. The Zhur had never truly understood the strength of the humans they had come to conquer. Now, it was clear. They had awakened a power they couldn't defeat. With the Zorath crippled and the Zhur fleet in full retreat, Earth stood victorious. The silence that followed the battle was almost as deafening as the explosions that had filled the skies moments before. The Goliath remained in orbit, its sleek silhouette a silent testament to humanity's resilience and ingenuity. For the Zhur, the reality of their defeat set in quickly. Zorathar, the once proud commander of the Zhur, watched as his fleet scattered across the stars, a shadow of its former might. What had begun as an invasion to dominate a primitive world had turned into a humbling defeat. The Zhur, who had believed themselves to be the apex of the galaxy, now found themselves face to face with the bitter truth. They had underestimated humanity. They had expected easy conquest, only to be met with resourcefulness and determination that no one, not even the Zhur, had anticipated. In the aftermath, the Zhur were forced to acknowledge the power of the humans they had once dismissed. The humbling reality of their defeat left them no choice but to consider peace. Their fleet, bruised and broken, limped away from Earth. But their leaders sent emissaries to Earth's government, seeking terms for peace. The message was clear. The Zhur had lost, and they would never again see humanity as an insignificant species. But this defeat wasn't just a win for Earth's forces. It sparked something much deeper across the planet. A global renaissance took shape. Humanity, once divided by borders and ideologies, found unity in the aftermath of this crisis. Nations that had never before considered cooperation now stood together, united by the shared knowledge that Earth had faced an existential threat and survived. The Goliath was preserved as a symbol of human ingenuity, not just in terms of technology, but in the spirit of innovation and unity that had driven its creation. It was placed in a museum, not as a monument to war, but as a reminder of what humanity could achieve when pushed to the brink. The Zorath, meanwhile, was left floating in Earth's orbit, a reminder of how far the jour had fallen. No longer could Earth be seen as a weak, insignificant planet. Humanity had proven itself capable of standing tall in the face of an overwhelming threat. And as the years passed, Earth's place in the galaxy was forever altered. The victory over the jour became a defining moment in human history. Governments, businesses, and scientific communities now looked to the stars, no longer fearing what lay beyond, but eager to explore and understand it. Humanity's position in the universe had changed forever. The knowledge that Earth had stood firm in the face of impossible odds gave rise to a new sense of purpose. The battle with the jour was over, but the journey had only just begun. As Earth's leaders convened to chart the next steps in their exploration of the cosmos, the message was unmistakable. Humanity was no longer a fledgling species. It had proven its strength, its ingenuity, and its ability to adapt when faced with the unknown. The universe had just learned a powerful lesson. Humanity was not to be underestimated. And as the stars beckoned, Earth was ready to answer, no longer as a fragile planet among countless others, but as a force to be reckoned with in the great expanse of the galaxy.